welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our inaugural Black Music Month panel on navigating the entertainment industry, and as well as we celebrate the amazing work of our panelists in the music, film, and poetry space. My name is Charles Levan from Blue Boot Entertainment, a sync agency firm here in LA, and really happy to see some familiar attendees from last time, where we had AAPI month, and this month celebrating everybody's great work. And we hope that from today's session, we continue the work of DEI and collaboration and community, and which is important to the leaders and pioneers of tomorrow. And with that, what we have on deck for our panel, the topics, we're going to have a chat about their great work in the film entertainment space. And we're going to learn who and what helped shape them over the years. And we're going to start with some quick intros and then open it up to 4 topics, learn about their background, who were some of their early mentors, talk about mentorship programs, and then talk about their advice for folks entering the entertainment space. And then we'll close out with a Q&A. And before we begin, just a friendly reminder, if everyone could silence notifications and your phones, because you don't want to miss a minute of this great panel. And I appreciate everybody. And also, before we start, just want to acknowledge and thank some colleagues and support over the years: Baffin Records, Fundamental Music, Palms Up Academy, Casey Dunmore, and also some independent artists from our Blue Buddha community, Tori Fleming, Ivy Ash, and also Magic. I appreciate everybody. And with that, we will start with the introductions and hop into our great chat here. And I'm really stoked and excited to introduce our first panelist. He's a veteran of the industry. He's a poet, writer, and director here in Los Angeles by way of Brooklyn. And the amazing Shihan Van Clief, who you would have known him back in the day on Russell Simmons' Def Poetry. You would have seen him on TED Talks, and here in Los Angeles, he's co-founder of DPL, the Poetry Lounge, one of the longest running poetry open mic spots, which celebrating 25 years. Welcome, Shihan. How's it going?
It's going all right. Going all right.
Very cool.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So good to connect and continue the chat about your great work. So I appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much.
Very cool. It's going to be a great hour, and I appreciate everybody. And next is a indie Blue Buddha artist from Houston, the Chaptabois, which I've worked with Marcus and Alvin Merritt for a minute. You would have heard their songs in All American, UFC, and Power. And holding it down and joining us today is Alvin Merritt. Good morning, Alvin.
Good morning. Nice to meet you, all of you. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Sorry, Marcus. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'll represent for the both of us, and we're just glad, we're excited to be part of the team, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much, Alvin. And from there, happy to introduce from the Baltimore area, Rare Gold Music Group artist and producer Theory, Only One Theory, who by way of a collaboration with Baffin Records, we synced up one of her songs in All American. She has a new compilation of works coming out soon called Wave MB, a genre she founded, and she can tell us more about. Good morning, Theory. How's it going?
Good morning. How are you? Or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast like me.
Indeed. So good to connect today, and very cool to collab in the past.
Oh, man. We have big things. We've done some great stuff. So it's great to be here. I'm happy to be a part of the panel and, just I'm excited to see where this discussion leads.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you, Theory. Most definitely. And from there, happy to introduce back to Los Angeles, a Chicago native, now here in LA, the prolific composer, writer, and also a conductor, Jermaine Stegall. You would have known his work on the big screen. Praise This, Coming to America, and also he scored 2 seasons of Star Wars, Our Stories, a documentary, which he'll tell us about. And good morning, Jermaine. So good to have you this morning on the panel.
Good morning, and great to be here. Looking to learn from everybody here and what everybody's been up to. And that was our Star Wars stories, by the way. But like you said, we'll talk about that later.
Indeed, indeed.
All good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm a big Star Wars fan. So when I read that in your bio, I said, we got to connect.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Most definitely. And also here in Los Angeles, my go-to guy for R&B and hip hop production. He's an artist from Black Irish Entertainment, Devin O'Bannon. Worked together for a minute. Shout out to his artist Vibe to Nova, who through a collab, we placed his tracks in All American, and Devin is an amazing guy. Devin, I appreciate you. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Looking forward to seeing where this chat lands and just to learn from everybody. Super excited to see what everybody's been up to.
Most definitely. Thank you, Devin. And wrapping up, last but not least, we're going to go to Chi-Town, Chicago, for the trio of TheLoveofPpl, a R&B neo-soul group that I work with, and we recently secured a track for them in Shrinking. On vocals, we have Blake Davis and Anai Quay, and the amazing producer engineer James Huang. Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. I'm Blake.
Hey, I'm James. Great to meet everyone here. Glad to be part of the discussion today.
Thank you both. Thank you both. And I think Anai will be joining us shortly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're going to open things up to the round table. And if we can, we'll start with you, Shihan, and then we'll go down the line as far as the order of introduction. But Shihan, would love to turn the mic over to you and hear about how you first started in the biz back in Brooklyn, and then along the way, who some of your early mentors were and how you ended up here in LA and co-founded DPL.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure the quickest version. First, I'm from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I lived in Brooklyn last year. I was there before I moved here, but I'm from Lower East Side, born and raised there. As far as my introduction, I grew up wanting to tell stories. I love reading. And I had the opportunity to, with some friends, we were in a group, we had a little hip hop group, and we're like, oh, we're gonna do songs and we're gonna blow up and blah, 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 blah. And we wind up doing some songs about shit we loved, which was basketball and hanging out. And one of those songs got to MCA, which was, you know, a Universal company back then, or owned Universal at that point. And we got signed to MCA. So I was signed as a hip hop artist first before my poetry kicked off. So through that, I wound up writing stuff for Reebok and for the NBA. And then MCA got sold to Seagram's. And then everyone who was on the label got dropped. And I won't date myself by saying how long ago it was, but there was a lot of us, including Rakim and Jodeci was on there.
Wow.
Notorious B.I.G. was on there. Everyone got dropped and got relocated to different labels. And that kind of soured my feeling about music at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I winded up going from there to LA. So I was in LA, I'd moved to LA, and I winded up going to a poetry spot just on a whim. I went to a club, they didn't let me in because I couldn't get in with jeans and a t-shirt because they don't allow that in clubs out here, which makes no sense. And so across the street, there was a poetry spot, and I was like, oh snap. And I walked inside, and that night I met a woman, her name's Ronnie Walters, and Ronnie became my mentor in the poetry scene. And that night, my first night performing, I met two of the three other founders, co-founders of the Poetry Lounge, Poetry Smith and Jamel and Dante Bosco. And from there, we started the Poetry Lounge just as a space, again, for young people to share stories, because I think everyone at a certain point they feel like as a young person, always older people always like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what that is. And so we needed a space where we felt our stories mattered. And so we started that spot. And originally it was in the cigar room of the Stinking Rose restaurant. And from there it kind of moved from house to venues. And then it became what it is now. And so through that, art, I'm trying to be quick. It's just a difficult thing because art is very much, when you're making it a career, your art is always dependent on other people's perceived value of it, instead of, like, if you want to make it a career, if it's just your thing and you're doing it for yourself, it kind of doesn't, you can do what you want because you love it. But when you're trying to do it for others, you always kind of have to depend on something, which is a kind of weird thing. And I'm glad that model has kind of changed a little bit, even though you still got to find people who love what you do to support it. So that's my quickest version of the thing. And yeah, I'll let other people go because I'll go forever.
No, appreciation. No, and just to thread that needle, Shihan, amazing. Because correct, with DPL, every Tuesday nights in Hollywood. So 25 years went by, and tell us next week, you guys, you're having the founders.
So next week is Founders Night, which is basically just celebrating the 4 founders of the Poetry Lounge, myself, Dante Bosco, Jamel Hooper, and Poetry Smith. And it is our 25th anniversary. And, for 25 years, longer if you just consider our relationships, but the relationship of the Poetry Lounge has been 25 years. And to get 250 people to come listen to poetry on a Tuesday night is definitely a thing, including what it provided as a space for artists just in general. So like Floetry came through there, Ed Sheeran got signed through the Poetry Lounge, JP Sachs got signed through the Poetry Lounge, NQ got signed as a songwriter through the Poetry Lounge. Prince came through the lounge, signed and bought some poems from one of the artists. Like, we've had a lot of opportunities at the lounge, and I think that's the thing with art also. You don't know how much it impacts somebody until it's created. So it's really just allowing a space to exist to allow those things to kind of happen, to see what's up. And that's what I'm grateful for. So next week is the Founders Night. So
very cool. No, thank you. Amazing. We'll drop the links in on our website so folks can come on through. But I really appreciate Shannon. Amazing work.
Thank you.
And from there, thank you. We will go back to Houston. Alvin, if you want to talk about the Chaptabois and how you guys first came on the scene. We've been working together for a minute, and with you and Marcus, how it first came about, and Okay,
you're right. We have been working with you for quite some time. It's our start is rather odd. We kind of like the individual who spoke before us. We were a group. We were under my father's label, who was also a hip hop artist with many artists under him. We toured and did music in different cities and states and things of that nature. And we were a young group who, wanted to be big rappers. At least that was the dream. That was the goal at that time. To try to condense it all, we started putting music on an app, or not an app, but a website called SoundClick. I don't know if you guys know about SoundClick. But back in the day, SoundClick was mainly for, production. I didn't know that you can actually put music on there. And I don't know if we were able to do so, but we were putting music on SoundClick. An individual from MTV reached out and he was like, hey, we want to use you guys' song for this MTV Real World versus Road Rules. I had no idea what licensing was. I had no idea. We had no idea what any of that was.
Right.
But we sent a contract, we signed it. Later, we heard the music on television. We were like, oh my gosh, we made it. That was the goal. I mean, that's what we thought. We had no idea about the business. Shortly after that, individuals started reaching out from other companies, other producers started reaching out, and we did music for Snitch with The Rock. We did music for another movie called Southpaw. And at that point, we decided to, try to franchise into like a business, because now, we see that there's a niche for this type of things. And then of course we started working with you, and the ball just continuously kept rolling. So it's just been a blessing. This is the condensed version, but it's been a blessing, and we pray to just keep going forward and, moving forward and creating more music and, working with other individuals to make sure we don't stop. So that's the condensed version of this all, because it can go on and on and on.
No, most definitely. And that's something to thread that needle from a panel we did last month for AAPI month is, community and collaboration. And, once we make the connects and once we have that pipeline and creating the pipeline of artists and creatives together, is just ensuring we continue to work together and foster that community.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, competition wise, everybody's putting out 1,000 pieces of music every day. So I appreciate you, Alvin, and
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
look forward to continuing the work.
Mhm.
And thank you. And from there, we'll turn the mic over to you, Theory, in Baltimore, and would love to hear your journey. And then if you want to tell us about Wave MP, I know you have a compilation coming out soon.
Yeah, so Theory is like that's like my name, what my family calls me, but my artist name is Only One Theory, and I actually got my start in the industry work by being an engineer and a producer, which for me, my journey is probably a lot different. I'm a woman, and a lot of times I cannot say I've actually had a mentor per se.
Mhm.
But I have learned the business just by being in it. So this year probably marks my 10-year mark of doing professional work. And as soon as I graduated audio engineering school, I just got in studios. So that's how I ended up getting on a song with Yo Gotti. I worked with a lot of people, but at the time I did not know the business. So it's just been an interesting journey where I've been working and building. I was in a girl group. You guys don't tell anybody. You probably can look it up. It's hilarious. But I've just been working and grinding. I've had a lot of opportunities, especially just of late, where I've completely expanded and grown everything that I've done. Because even just in addition to being an artist, I kind of take a lot of different lanes. I have a label. It's independent, all woman owned and operated. I compose and score. So I just have the opportunity to work with a lot of cool people. I was signed to Ashanti's management team for like about 3 or 4 years, and I still have a great relationship with them, but I was able to be mentored and just learn a lot about, exposure. That was the name of the group, was Exposure. Yeah, so I just say, for my personal experience, even now, when most people reach out to me, they automatically think I'm a man. So I mean, it's kind of cool. It works in my favor. Like, yeah, bro, this type of thing. But really and truly, it's just been a culmination of being blessed, of being resilient, and just kind of doing my own thing, regardless of, what anybody says I can or cannot do. I started being a producer as a child. I played instruments and things like that, but I hated waiting for people to make my beats. I didn't like going into a studio and having to wait for an engineer to get back to me, or feel like I'm paying money to, do something for somebody who doesn't care about my music, my sound. So I'm like, I can do this myself. So I just committed myself to being not just a student of music, but a student of the business as well. Just knowing how things work, and being in a situation where I can partner with people. Like now I have an EP coming out. We partner with Sony. It's The Art of Wave and B. And that's releasing 7/7, so July 7th.
Cool.
And yeah, that's that. And we have our All-American placement, which was crazy. It was, that's what we wanted to happen, but these things take time. When you get the call, it's just like, it's great news. So and since then I've scored movies on Tubi. I have a reality TV show I'm working on. So that's kind of like my journey is a wild one, guys. Like, I'm in Baltimore City. Nobody expects the type of music that I do to come from the city that I'm in, which motivates me and drives me even more to make beautiful music out of a place that nobody would expect.
Amazing. Only One Theory. Thank you. No,
Thank you, Charles.
I think, throughout it all is, leaning into the storytelling, and, authenticity. As a sync agent, the shows we work with, whether it's All American or shows on ABC and CW, the story is the third actor in the scene. So it comes down to, really connecting those dots. And someone who can speak to that as well as a film composer, Jermaine, we'll turn the mic over to you on your journey, and would love to hear how you first got into the biz.
Hey y'all. It's funny. Shihan was talking about the condensed version. It's like, how do I go back? We're talking about this fall will be 20 years I've been in Los Angeles.
Wow.
But if I could do a condensed version, I would say in third grade I started playing the violin. Fifth grade, quit 3 weeks later. Fifth grade started playing saxophone, and the moment I started playing, I knew at that point, and that was 1989. That I wanted to have a career in music for sure. I didn't know anything about how any of the stuff would relate. But fast forward through junior high, high school, saxophone performance, college, I decided to major in music in college. And the summer before I went to college, I saw the movie Apollo 13. And for me, when the ship took off, that was the light bulb moment that music synchronization with picture was on purpose.
Yeah.
It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just like people
Right.
grabbing stuff and a
Yep.
light bulb went off, which was a huge distraction for the next 4 or 5 years, finishing this saxophone degree and also trying to figure out what this idea of what a composer actually was, or how they, how do you get from the Midwest, from Chicago, from Joliet, Illinois, to Los Angeles scoring, actual movies. But, the journey ended up taking me to University of North Texas, where I got a master's in composition, dabbled in jazz, but then applied to USC's film scoring program the second year of my 3-year period in Texas, and got on the waiting list, which was perfect because you'd have to wait a year anyway. So I had another year to do school. And like I said, that July, after I got finished the degree, we got married, and then we moved to LA a month later. And so I did a 1-year advanced studies in scoring program at USC. And at that point, now I'm in Los Angeles. That was my transition from Joliet, Illinois, to being in Los Angeles, and then from there, we'll probably talk a little bit about. I don't know. My brain's kind of all over just thinking about the things that I was thinking about when I got here, which was, how do I do something practical? And at that time, I was obsessed with this composer, Marco Beltrami, who had done the movie Scream, who had gone to USC. And USC had a giant reputation of seemingly having people having placement in the actual workforce.
Yep.
And so he became my obsession. And to fast forward, I ended up becoming his first intern at the end of the school year on the film I, Robot, where he was rescoring a film that the score got thrown out. So he had 11 days to write 100 minutes of music, and I got to watch as an intern what that looks like.
Wow.
And typically that's not what we do. 11 days to write 100 minutes, record it, giant orchestra, percussion only session. That's a major feat, but that was 2004. And so from there, I've done the gamut of jobs, from working as a copyist, working as an assistant, worked, as an additional music composer to different people on and off, doing indie films, short films, feature films, video game, additional music, whatever, commercials. It's all scoring. And then fast forwarding to now, and here I'm talking to you about my made. Anyway, yeah.
No, thank you, Jermaine. And I think, the takeaways from both you, Jermaine, and Only One Theory are, being ready for the moment, doing, perfecting your craft. Competition is immense. Collaboration is key, working with others.
One thing Theory said is, she was talking about not wanting to wait for people, which is something I think even Shihan mentioned, this idea of waiting on some, as an artist, when you want to be commercial. Now your livelihood depends on someone else being involved in that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this idea of not waiting for people, I think that's going to be a theme I'm going to harp on today. To be creating stuff all the time in the background for you, because someone might like that, but then you also need to be feeding yourself as an artist. If you call yourself an artist, that's just part of the nature of it, creating,
Yes. 100%. And, with technology, being able to share that across platforms, and, it's that's a great point, Jermaine. So thanks for breaking that down. And then we're going to also in LA turn it back to Devin O'Bannon from Black Irish Entertainment. Would love to hear your story, and then also mentors along the way,
Oh man. It kind of started similarly to Jermaine's story. I was super young. I remember it was on my birthday. My parents got me this small little Casio keyboard because I would always be banging on my mom's piano, and she's like, "I'm gonna get you your own because you're just banging." And it had 4 little tracks on it, and I figured out, okay, this thing has more instruments than just the piano on it, and started creating these beats and putting these little beats together that would just loop, And then my uncle, he was a computer engineer, and so he always showed me how to get like sound in and sound out of the computer. And I was like, okay, cool, let me figure this out. My dad had all the cords I needed, auxiliary cord plugged into the headphones, and then it had a little voice note thing into the PC. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, I can record these things and play them back. And so I'm playing the beat, have it play for like 15 minutes, taking instruments out, putting instruments in, and all this other stuff. And then I figured out, okay, wait, I can save this to a CD back in the day. Once I figured that out, go to my dad's car and play it in the car. And I'm like, okay, no, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to create music. I want to make beats. I want to create songs, because I was always surrounded by musicians, and always, being in the church, hearing musicians play, the music was just always a part of me. And so I knew it from then. It was just something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I kind of just mentally kept that in mind. And music has always been a part of my life. And as I developed and going to school, always being a part of music programs, graduated with a recording arts and composition degree at Oakwood University in Alabama.
Nice.
And, got my business degree to really understand the business side of it. And then me and my wife, we got married back in 2014 when I moved to LA. And the story was, developed from there, just being in studios every weekend, writing with artists. And now I work with a collection of 25 plus artists now, both on the major and indie side. And then I didn't really step into sync until I think it was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. One of my buddies was like, Dev, like I can hear music you're creating on like TV shows that I'm watching. And I was like, word? I was like, let me figure out how to get my music in this. And so just doing research and figuring out music supervisors and sync houses and creative directors and all these people that I needed to talk to, kind of connected me into that. And then once I really started having conversations and understanding the sync side of things, I was like, oh, okay, no, this is where I need to be. This is my stage. Because I love the creative process, but I don't want to be in the light of an artist. And so like being able to write and record and do all this stuff, but I don't want to be performing. I don't want to be on stages. That's not my scene. But then I figured out my stage is actually film and TV. And so being able to create, compose for film and TV, for games. And now I'm in a place where I'm doing a lot of that, working on trailers, working on video games, working on, TV shows. We've got some great placements with Blue Buddha. And just, collecting and collaborating and building catalogs with creatives that, are on this panel. Like I'm super excited with, what's to come and what we've done up to this point. So like everybody's been saying, that's the compressed version of what I've been doing. So
thank you, Devin. And, to pull a point out that, in past panels, we talked about a key point, which everybody does here is, finding that balance between your creating your art and your passion and then balancing with the business side. So when you build your team, who's going to fulfill every role, and you can quarterback and have that path to success. So thank you, Devin. And with that,
thank you.
I appreciate you. And we'll take it to Chicago. And the Love of People, we connected through Ari's Take Academy and synced up one of your songs in Shrinking. But James, I know you guys started composing writing your songs through the pandemic, and you want to tell us how you all came together in Chicago.
Yeah. I'm a simple guy. I've always enjoyed expressing myself through music. Growing up, was classically trained. But then that kind of led to me making my own beats, making music for myself. And then that led to an open mic where I met Anai, who introduced me to Blake. And we just started working together during the pandemic, just meeting up at my apartment and just keeping things simple. We weren't really trying to take these songs anywhere. We just wanted to express ourselves and really make the best music we could. And yeah, from there, yeah, we're through that class, we're able to meet you, Charles, and then here we are today. It's been a pretty cool journey. But yeah, I think just through wanting to, express our own ideas, we're able to meet a lot of really cool collaborators and yeah, make a lot of sweet music.
Yes, no, and excited. I know more to come. I know you guys got new tracks in the pipeline, and we'll share that on our website. But looking forward to hearing that.
Definitely.
Very cool. Thank you, James. And then we'll open this up to whoever wants to take it, and we can freestyle, if you will, on this, on as far as advice, for whether it's composers, artists, poets. Competition is immense. Music wise, there's no shortage of music out there with technology, and we got external issues, AI, those types of things come down the pipeline, working through writer strikes. And meanwhile, one big piece of advice, for artists on navigating the space, whoever wants to take that, would love to hear, and we can build on that.
I guess I could tap in. Unless somebody else was going to tap in. Theory, you want to jump in?
Yep, I sure will.
Go for it. I'll tap in after you.
Okay, all right, bet. You threw me the little alley-oop. Okay, so you know what? It is there is so much music that gets released. However, I will say this is my piece of advice that I tell any and everybody. Nobody can duplicate your sound. And the thing about everybody is uniquely, individually, the more and more we lock in and hone in and kind of craft things that are true to us and just get in, our flow and our process, the more that we know ourselves. To me, it is definitely a spiritual thing, because you're going within to create something that has not been seen or heard before. But in doing that, you create a sound. So one thing that I do not do is when I'm about to make something, like if I'm scoring or if I'm a song, and I'm an artist also. So before I even go in to do a project or record, I don't listen to any outside music. I don't want anything to like kind of impact my flow or like what I think I want to bring to fruition, just because of that fact right there. And honestly, out of 100% of music, 90% of it is copied from somewhere else. Like most of the songs we even hear on the radios now are samples. They've been done. We've heard it a million times. A lot of the producers who are making music, they're only creating things on FL Studio. So you can hear every beat sounds the same. It's like every kick sounds the same. Every 808 sounds the same. The creativity almost is like kind of being lost, but that is actually what makes it easy. Like I'm grateful for this era now, like, because it's like if there are a million songs being released and out of 1,900,000 of them sound the same, and honestly they're not mixed correctly, they don't have any creativity, the bars are so generic you can almost guess the next word they're going to say, right? Stock samples, exactly. Like it's like crazy, because that's kind of like the flow. So it honestly makes somebody that is an actual artist or a composer or a producer or whatever your lane is, it makes it easy for you to stand out. The only part you have to do after that is just focus on your branding. Get your email down, like get your websites down packed. Make sure your social media looks like up to par, because people look at different things. Sync licensing agencies look at something different than a Sony would. Sony, they want to see your numbers. Sync, they don't care if you have 100,000 followers on your Instagram, right? But a promoter or somebody who's booking a show will look at these things. So it's just about knowing like how each lane in the industry is. But that's what I would give anybody the utmost advice is just cultivate your sound, because nobody has it. Nobody can take it from you. And it's like, it's only the moments where we start to second guess ourselves because somebody may not be used to hearing it, but all somebody has to do is hear the same sound 7 times, 7 times, and it gets stuck in their mind. That's all. So even if most of the things we think are trash, we know the words to it because we've heard it, right? So that's all I say is just your sound, because that's the thing that's missing. And that is the thing that people really, truly want. That's what the fans want. Listeners want to hear unique things. People are tired of hearing music now, honestly, because of, the repetition. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you. Only went through. No, some really good points there. And Devin, if you want to tag team that and go for it.
Just to piggyback off of that, like identity is big, and I talk to my artists about that. Just maintaining your identity and like you said, understanding what you bring to the table, because you can get lost easily in this music industry. If you start trying to chase what's trending, you're always going to be the last one because you're chasing it. But if you're actually setting something up to be the trend, then you're already ahead of the game. And so I always talk to my artists and let them know, like, hey, this is what's the sound that's out, and we can add elements to keep the familiarity, because that's what it's about. Like, people who are familiar with what's going on and what's out right now are drawn to it, but always maintain your identity in your music. And so for artists, for creatives, for producers, if you have a sound that you really enjoy, keep it. Don't try to change it because somebody else told you, oh, well, that's not it right now. That's not hot right now. Or, that's not what's going on the radio, or that's not what people are looking for. Like, nah, maintain your music, because there is a community that loves what you do. There's people out there that love what you do. And so as long as you maintain your identity in your music, you're going to win. You're going to win, whether it be in sync, whether it be on streaming platforms, whether it just be the vibe of the community that you got in your city, whatever it may be. Like, you're always going to win because people are going to know your music outside of whatever is out right now. So that's advice that I would give to fellow creatives and my peers.
Yeah. Thank you, Devin. And to bookend both you guys' point, me as a sync agent, it's up to me to marry your music to picture, depending on what the creatives are looking for. In the audience, another BB artist, Jackson Whalen, he did a collab with KRS-One, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But just want to touch on that. Collaboration is key. Creating something new, fusing different styles, it opens it up to the sync side of things, depending on what people are looking for. And I think that's a good segue to you, Alvin, and what you guys do with the Chaptabois. If you want to talk to us, one piece of advice from Houston: you guys have always maintained authenticity in all of your tracks.
Correct. And thank you for saying that. That's kind of what I wanted to tap in. I agree with the 2 previous individuals in regards to identity. But one thing I can say personally is comfort zone. I feel that a lot of artists, we get familiar with a certain style that suits us and we get comfortable in a certain direction. But I believe in the sync industry, it is very good to step outside of your comfort zone. As you know, Charles, none of our music is the same. Everything is totally different, from the production to the lyrics to the way that we ride the beat, the syncopation. Nothing is ever the same. And I think that's very important when you're trying to build your platform, build your space in the sync world and things of that nature. So my advice to anyone would be to step outside of it. Never get comfortable with your familiar sound. I mean, definitely stay true to your identity, but I feel that it's very important to step outside of your comfort zone, because at that point is when you're able to tap into different genres. And, we have music that can be played in the Titanic, so, and we're rap artists. So I think that's it. I think that's the important factor, stepping outside of your comfort zone, my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, well said. Thank you. And I think, Shihan, that's a great segue and then we'll wrap it with James on advice. But Shihan, I know when you started out, tell us about, your angle with your spoken word and poetry. You took a positive route. And at the time,
I think it kind of goes in line with what everybody is saying as far as understanding who you are and what kind of artist you are, as well as your identity. But I think that to a certain degree that oversimplifies even understanding your identity. I think so many people are dealing with knowing, because I think you're surrounded by so many things that I think we have very much not coddle culture, but we a lot. It's like yeah, because no one wants to say no. Like that don't sound good. It's like, but I think there's something to positive criticism, and I think I was watching something, and they said I don't want to be surrounded by people who only give me positive critique and positive criticism, because you wind up making shitty art. Right? If no one ever gives you something to build upon, you're gonna make the same things and do the same thing because everyone's like, yeah, all the time. And so for us, I think we were lucky with the lounge, and for the poets I was brought in around, was we all sounded different because we all had different experiences. And when we came together, it was something that I think I believe there's a lot of luck involved. Yeah, you could be prepared, but being in the right place for the moments and this and this and this really is about just being there, right? You don't know what's going to happen when you go. You can present your intentionality, but that don't mean shit if no one else gives a fuck, right? So like, I think sitting there, I got to see artists, and the things I looked at in them were things I was not doing. And so I was able to go, I felt comfortable enough to have friends around me that I could say, what do you think about this? After so much time around me, they're like, yo, you were raised by a single father. You've never really done a poem about that. That was important to hear. As much as I talk about my father, I had never written anything about him. So just that little small piece helped build something that I was not on. And I think from there, I realized, because the mentor I had with Ronnie was that I wanted to be not where I was, right? Like, because when most people hear poetry, they think very specific things, right? Because that's the world I kind of created my career in. So you get a lot of this shit, like stuff like that, right? And to me, that deserves context, right? So when people snap in poetry readings, I think it's important to let people know it's not a poetry thing. It's poetry readings used to happen in people's houses, and to keep from disturbing the neighbors, they would snap their fingers so they weren't loud. So it's not like it's a poetry thing, you just do it anywhere. Now I want everybody to hear it. I don't want poetry to be a secret that we're keeping. In the same way, your art shouldn't be a secret you're keeping. It is something you can share with the world. So from there, I wanted to get into as many places as possible. And so we always try. So we would go to comedy clubs, go to the Comedy Store. We went to the Laugh Factory, went to the Improv, and we would get on lines and share in those spaces where people were not going, yeah, this is what we want to hear. It's like they go, get the hell out of here. But it was also something that put us in a place where we weren't always comfortable, which was another thing. You don't want to be comfortable where you're at all the time. And so from there, it was moving and moving and moving to different spaces. And so for poetry, it was, where can I share my story to a bunch of people who don't care about my story? That to me is more important than just having a poem that I know is really dope, or a song that I know is really dope. It's like, if one of my biggest lessons, and I'll move out of this, is I went and did a show years ago, and I was called, and it was an art gallery in Pennsylvania. And they said, we want to have you as the opening of a gallery. And I was like, they're going to have a poet open a gallery? This sounds crazy. And they go, tickets are $200, right? So I already knew there weren't going to be some kids there. There weren't going to be a bunch of young people. And when I got there, the audience was like 300 something people, and they were all over 50. And they were all in Beaver, Pennsylvania, which is a conservative town about an hour and a half outside of Pittsburgh, which meant I had to get them to understand what it was I'm trying to say. So if I come out and I'm like, white people are crazy, they destroyed the world, that's not going to help my cause. I want them to listen. And I feel like if I can get if someone's already here like this, if I can get them to lean in, that's more important than getting them to go, whoa, hold up, man. Because it's a conversation. I look at my art as a conversation. I want people to feel like they can be engaged, and it's not just me doing whatever I want to do. And when I'm done, I'm like, I'm out. And so those things, I think poetry allows that, because it also presents in a live format. I have to perform in front of people all the time. So I get an early access point to understanding the connection between an artist and an audience, right? I get to look at my audience directly in the face different than when I was doing music and it's just on an album or it's on a thing. I don't see how that responds. But in a poetry spot, I have to see someone go like this. This dude sucks. That, right? Or this dude's amazing, but I get to see it. And that influences how I create from that point on. You know what I mean? So I think I had the luxury of being in a great art and surrounding myself with people who pushed me to do more than just what I was expecting myself to do when I got there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm older now. Next year will be 30 years I've been in the poetry scene and been in music, right? I got signed to MCA, I'm gonna say the date now, it was in 94. I got signed in 94 to a 7-album deal, and that fell apart after they got sold, right? My life has changed, and now I'm a director. So I've done film, I've done written commercials, I've written campaigns for people, I've done all these things. And if I just went in there going, I'm a poet, it wouldn't have been looked at the same. I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a director, those things, I'm a father of 3, a husband of 1. Those things matter in the creation of my identity and understanding who I am and what I provide to somebody who's a prospective supporter of the art I'm trying to create. So,
amazing.
I will mute myself.
No, thank you, Shihan. And I think that ties in, Devin, there was a quote from Devin O'Bannon who said, music is a universal language. So let's have a conversation. So I'm paraphrasing on that. And then between the love of people and Jermaine, if you guys bit of advice, and then we can move on to the Q&A.
I can speak a little bit. Definitely want to share with Anai and Blake as well. But I guess in terms of part of our experience has always been like, being able to express ourselves, but also being curious and open. Each day, each track is a new experience. Just being open to exploring new sounds, new techniques. We went right last time, let's try to go left. Let's see how this sounds. We tried this type of sound, this type of drum beat before. All right, let's switch it up, and I'm glad that we do have that flexibility and that capability to try new things, to be curious, to really explore what it means to be true to ourselves.
No.
And to I'm sorry. Man, totally, like, for us to be able to like collaborate together, and we're like, Anai lives in New York, James and I live in 2 opposite parts of the city, you know what I mean? So for us to even get together and listen to each other and listen to our ideas, it like really shows to like our efforts in wanting this, you know what I mean? And wanting to go the extra mile. And so I think that along with collaborating and getting your voice out and, sharing ourselves, it's a lot to do with that effort and drive that we have to do that and practice those things in everything we do, in every aspect of life. Like Shihan was saying, you're a father of 2, a husband of 1, you're all of these different things. We're all of these different things. And it's a matter of the day-to-day effort we put into, the intent we put into every single thing we do in every single moment of our lives. And making sure that we're able to communicate these things on a level that's like, all right, we're on the same page. This is how we can move forward. Or this is not for me, or being honest with each other, So like, man, the way that we connected was just, man, God's plan for sure, because it was during the pandemic for sure. You know what I mean? It was at a time where nobody knew what the hell was going on with art, especially, you know what I'm saying? Especially performative art. You know what I mean? So we didn't think the world would come back to what it is now, but thank God we took that, that time to really hone in on what was important to us. And all right, what am I doing? All right, how can I do this to sustain ourselves? How can we really like, make it so we built this thing up so like any storm that hits it, we'll eat and survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And feed our family and feed the ones that we love. So yeah, and I.
Thank you, Blake.
You're muted. No problem. Just wanted to share a little bit.
Yeah, no, 100%. And go ahead, Anai.
Sorry. I think we listen to each other a lot, and every time we do, we end up with like a new sound. and make sure we like allow room for like there's a lot of collaboration that happens with us and no ego, which is why I really appreciate creating music with them, and it elevates us every time.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Amazing. And I see that with a lot of the bands we work with. And Jermaine, if you want to close out on a piece of advice, then we'll open up on onto the Q&A.
Everybody's literally from the first one or two people has said exactly what I was going to say about being original. And I feel like we live in an industry where, you know, my mind, you know, you're only, you know, the artists, we're really competing with ourselves, not other creators, you know. The more we can tap into self, I think that's what people want to hear. Like they're hungry, they're starving for this level of what is the real you, not a clone of, you know, you want to be influenced by the things you like, obviously, but you don't want to be trying to make a living out of being a clone. And then, you know, the idea of, I don't know, I was just going to mention something about remembering that we're storytellers as artists. And that goes obviously from poetry to making, you know, if you're making beats, if you're thinking of it from the point of it's possible for just this beat to be synced, you want to be thinking about how to make, you know, something that it's usable. It's within the context of a story, meaning perhaps have an intro, you know, have something that builds, have something that ends with a button, or, you know, just in terms of, you know, that you know, if you've done this before, you know, you needed to go back, you know, we a lot of us, we live in a world of notes, so the less notes that, you know, you can deal with on the first round, the closer you are to the finish line when it comes to telling a story. And I'm, you know, obviously not just beats, but when we're doing anything that has to do with music or art that's telling a story, just to be thinking about that and not just kind of like, this might end up there, and you create it in a vacuum without, you know, the usability, you know, the tools that come along with some of these things. But everybody said everything already.
Yeah. No, and thank you, Jermaine. To bookend that, you know, on one of your chats I caught online, I love what you said about, you know, your influences of gospel and John Williams score. You know, that passion that you took from your studies, and then obviously having the opportunity and applying, working on with the Star Wars franchise. But that really hit home for me as well.
Yeah, because it's like, look, that interview you're talking about, I want the people at Lucasfilm to know that I'm interested in gospel. Why? Because maybe there's something specific in their realm of doing 30 or 40 Star Wars related things that has something to do with something spiritual, where they need a choir only score. I don't know if that's true, but, you know, if that ends up happening in this realm of secret projects that they have, I want to be the one that they think about. You know?
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there, you know.
For sure. No, amazing. Thank you for that. And if we run a couple minutes over, if anyone needs to bounce, no worries. Just hit us up on the our panelists, but we'll open it up on the quick Q&A, get some questions in from our attendees. And co-host Chase Walker is with us. So if you guys want to raise your hand, Chase will. We got a question from Magic in Poland. And Chase, if you want to facilitate and turn the mic over to Magic.
Give me 1 second here. Make sure. Okay.
Hello, guys.
Oh, actually, we're good, Chase. Okay, we are awesome. Good. Go ahead, Magic.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inspiring panel. I wanted to ask you about mistakes. I mean, mistakes, the situations when you have committed some kind of mistakes that could maybe change your path. I mean, you tell about us about things we should focus, but I think it would be nice to have some kind of case study of something we can learn from. You know what I mean? Some situations when you had to challenge yourself
Absolutely.
more than usually.
Absolutely. I think Shihan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it's be quick. So I think my friends and I, we have a saying, you know, we say yes until we have the luxury of saying no to things, right? Because we put ourselves in situations that we don't know where we'll end up, right? So, and then, and the case study for that to be the reason why we stuck to that was, I was approached years and years ago by a television producer who was like, "Oh, I love the way you tell story. You ever thought about being in a writing room?" And I was like, "Nah, yeah, you know, who knows?" And he invited me in, and I never went, right? Never showed up, right? And it was the show Arrested Development, right? And never. Then I saw him years later. He's like, "What happened?" I was like, "I don't know," right? So that was stupid. And then again, another television producer was like, "Hey, you ever heard the show Quantum Leap? We're gonna reboot it. What do you think about giving a shot to try and write this?" And I was like, sure, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Never called him back because I was scared. I was worried about what might come out, right? Yeah. And I think you can't be worried about what might come out, because there's a bunch of shit that I listen to. There's a bunch of shit. You can't listen to, or you can't watch only The Godfather, right? You have to watch some shit also if you're a creator, because you can't look at only the best and go, damn, I may not never make it there. So you have to sometimes allow yourself some grace with some bullshit so you can go, it's still possible, right? So I think that's important to see. And as far as mistakes as a performer, just to give one little caveat wrinkle, when I did HBO, that's a live performance, I blanked out in a poem, like halfway through. I was taught early by my mentor, no one knows you mess up until you tell them. So I blanked out and I just sat there for a second, closed my eyes, recomposed, and finished. Yeah. And when it aired, I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they aired that one. They didn't use the other poem. And people were coming up to me going, man, I felt you in that moment. And I was like, unless you were confused, you don't know what the hell I was feeling. But again, you don't know. You do not know. Yeah. And so give yourself grace, allow yourself to mess up, and allow yourself to try things. I listen to like Alexis French. I love classical music. I listen to hip hop stuff. I love the shit out of some Earth, Wind & Fire, my favorite group all time. I listen to Public Enemy. Like, I listen to the range of things, and I read the range of things because I'm interested in story and language, and that allows me to see how different stories reach different people by different language being used. So allow yourself to mess up and just go, like, go for it.
Great advice. Thank you, Shihan. Huge. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that comment about grace. You got to give yourself grace. That's huge. And then also, I want to reiterate, like I was just watching Daniel Kaluuya was talking about, you know, artists, we make stuff. That's what we do. It's not a job to sit and wait. You know, the job is the creating part. You know, sometimes you get paid for it, sometimes you don't. But, you know, I'm always thinking of things in the future or hypothetical situations where I'm writing for a demo that I haven't even been asked to write for. So, I mean, that was something I wanted to actually, you know, really emphasize today, was this need for people to realize no one has to ask you to create something, or they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to ask you, beg you to create. Beg, what are you working on? You know, you should, you know, and it's not about being prolific, but it's about doing something, right? You know, and honing your craft at all times, whatever that may be, you know.
Thank you, Jermaine. Now, and to thread that needle, Shihan, and we'll turn to the next question. You know, someone recounted a story. They got some emails from someone who wanted to do a collab. They didn't have time to reply back. Years later, they turned fast forward and they found out it was Taylor Swift. So this person who I know and worked with, she could have had a collab with Taylor Swift. So like you said, it's and then give yourself that grace. You know, we can't do it all. Where life happens, but do our best. And when we make a mistake, you know, turn it into art and learn from those teachable moments. But thank you, Magic, for that question. And looks like, yeah, Jackson from New England, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Cheers. Yeah, first of all, thanks to everybody, and it's great to connect and see the community here, and thanks to Chase and Charles. And yeah, I just wanted to say that Jermaine, I really resonated with, just like create, like being in creation mode. And like recently I kind of have started to actually schedule time in my day to try to create consistently. Because like it's kind of like swimming upstream sometimes. It feels like with all the admin work and all the pitching and everything that we need to do as artists to have a career, it's like the actual making of the music can be tough. So I just wanted to hear from anybody really about what is your routine for tuning everything else out and just being creative and doing what you do best. So if anybody has like
I can tap in on that. Great question though. Great question. For me, it's being intentional about setting the time. Like what you're doing right now is key. Making time to make it happen. Cause like, you know, us as creatives, we think about music 24/7 in our sleep while we're awake. We're thinking about something creatively all the time, but being intentional about creating is key. I did the whole 9 to 5, you know, and I was working, you know, 9 to 6, and then I'd be in the studio working with creatives, producing whatever it may be from 7 to 1, and then have to do that over and over and over again until it got to the point where I was able to do it full time, because I was able to hone in on my craft. And I wouldn't say perfect it, because, you know, I'm a student to the game. So like I'm always learning. But being intentional, that's it. Being intentional about setting the time aside, because we can get so caught up in life that, you know, it can really mess up our you know, intentional time to do what we love, which is creating music, being a creative. And so just from my side, just being intentional about the time to create is key.
Thank you, Devin. I appreciate that. And thanks, Jackson, for that question. And we'll take one more so we don't go too much on the overtime.
One thing, if I could,
go for it.
just to add to that, just because I have some experience with this, you know, working with Charles on the admin side to pitch all of our wonderful artists on a day-to-day basis, as well as working on my own music. What I've found is that when you're trying to put yourself in a creative state, the mental processes that help with administrative tasks aren't necessarily super productive for creating and creating things that inspire you. You know? What I've found is that the most important thing you can do is to find a way to get yourself into a state of mental playness, if that makes sense. Like, think about like if we could talk about like toys for a second, right? Like if you're playing right with a Rubik's Cube, or with like one of those puzzles you used to be able to buy at like Barnes and Noble, where you got to like separate the two things or whatever.
Yep.
Those are like strategic toys, and you have to like really think about how am I going to get around this problem, right? And that's not the kind of mental play that I've experienced is able to produce the most compelling art. The kind of mental play I'm talking about is like the kind of mental play that a child engages in when they play with Legos, or when they play with action figures and they come up with a story. You know what I mean? It's a fluidity and a freeness of play, and it's almost instinctual, childish kind of state that you have to get yourself into. Letting go of the strategic analytical processes that you normally go through on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, thanks, Jason. I think the takeaway, that intention and mindfulness, and, you know, talking with Tangerine Bolton, the composer, the other day, she was saying some of her best work happens from, you know, 11 at night to 3 a.m. when she's working on a score or composition. You know, it's just her and her mind and her thoughts and the music and the process, no interruption. So uninterrupted time is critical. But we'll take one more, and if not, we will wrap the session. Does anybody have one more question for our esteemed panelists? Let's see here. And actually, actually, I got a question for Brian Vickers. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. And we'll wrap with this. He's in the spirit of Black Music Month. Who are some of your favorite Black artists? Panelists, if you want to hop on this, we'll do the speed round table, and we'll close here. That's a great question. Thanks, Brian.
I'll tap in real quick. I grew up in the R&B, hip hop, gospel world. My top artist that still inspires me to this day when I listen to his music is Music Soul Child. That's my guy. Just the style of his music, the way he writes, the development of his sound from the beginning stages even until now. Like his musicianship, that's my guy. So
nice. And I'll
music is. You mind if I answer this too? I'm sorry.
Go for it, Blake. Absolutely.
Marvin Gaye would be my top. Man, Marvin Gaye, his emotiveness, his freeness, whenever he just tapped in, and he seemed to always tapped, man. Like that's probably one of my idols as far as just songwriting, musicality, fluidity, like connectivity to the audience and who is in the room, just to be on the same page. That Marvin for me, man, hands down. Or Luther too. I don't know, it's tough though. It's tough.
Mine, I said mine already. It was Earth, Wind, and Fire, because I felt like they're like Motown in a group. Like they did everything. They carried such a wide range of instrumentation, and like they were just dope. So Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then of current shit, I mean, I'm a like I said, I listen to Alexis French. I love the shit out of some classical music by some Black composers, and Kendrick. I think Kendrick, the musicality of what he does is what's really dope to me, outside of him being good.
Nice. And I'll take it to a Memphis, Tennessee, High Records, Al Green, Teddy Pendergrass, Philly International Records. When I was at Capitol Records in the 90s, working with the reissues there. And in the 80s, for me, I came up on, it was all about WBLS New York, listened to mixtapes. So yeah, Public Enemy, MC Shan, and We'll Take It to the Bridge. And but that's my core of my passion for the indie artists we work with. But yeah, if anyone else wants to take that, and then we will close out.
It always bums me out to hear the personal stories that people have about this artist. But just one that's speaking to my soul most recently is Sly and the Family Stone. But he's so great, but I hear such horrific stories about people who've interacted with him. You know what I mean? It's one of those like legendary things in the industry. But yeah, one of the OGs.
Yeah.
I've been told I was an old soul by many people, and I feel like first I'll start with vocalists. I have to say I think, and it's hard to say this because it's like you're excluding so many people that you love, but just hear me out. Ella Fitzgerald. There's a really great documentary on Netflix that when I started watching it and thinking about the fact that I guess I didn't realize how much of almost like a childhood genius that she was, and some of the things that she did in terms of groundbreaking and how she got on the radio and just held her own as a scat singer, what that did for music in general. Like that's such a huge thing for me. Obviously being born in 1977, Prince, Michael, Stevie, Quincy, these are all people that just, they will never go away. I feel like their music is timeless. And then if any of them, if you've seen, like for instance, Prince live, I feel like the idea of the imagination and what music, the visual element to what just music alone can bring to your mind. If you close your eyes and listen to that guy, the worlds that he's created, the B-sides, the unreleased stuff. I could go on for days about Prince, just Prince. Have to send the shout out. First of all, John Batiste, I think he's really doing some special stuff right now in terms of boundary breaking and genre crossing. Like I'm finding myself feeling like I have to have my kids hear this guy. He's not just a jazz musician. Like his music is for the world. We'll go it out. I'll be remiss to not mention the Chris Bowers is absolutely destroying the game right now in terms of film composers and as a composer in general, writing concert music. He's got I have to plug this, a new documentary coming out on Hulu. I think he's a producer on, but it's about creating a new national anthem. Check it out. Go down to Chris Bauer's rabbit hole. And then also my friend Jean-Luc Bontal, who just scored the new Transformers movie. Transformers 7 is no small feat. To do a $200 million green screen movie with moving parts for, over the course of 1.5, 2 years, to pull off a score like that. Like, if you haven't seen it, just go and listen and think about, I mean, these movies you don't snap your fingers and get a score like this done. This is some groundbreaking stuff that's happening, and it's an exciting time to see a lot more composers and women of color doing the things that have typically only been done by white males at that level, So go check those guys out too.
No, thanks, Jermaine. We'll when we post this playback, we'll post the links up. And time flew by, but I really want to thank our esteemed panelists, our attendees, and we're going to send a short survey feedback to our attendees. We're going to be producing future panels like this. We want to always make sure we deliver with the highest level. So if you guys take a couple minutes to fill that out, we'd appreciate it. But round of applause and thank you for our panelists for taking the time out. I really appreciate you guys. And we're going to continue the chat both online and offline. And Jermaine's going to join me. We have a podcast. We're going to have some other guests. We'd love to link up individually with each of you so that we can keep the dialogue going, share your work online. And with that, I really appreciate you. It was a great chat and celebration of all your work in Black Music Month. And catch you guys on the other side. I appreciate everybody and thank you. Peace.